Welcome back to the next chapter. I'm Marty, and this is Jaden. This week's topic is how do you choose your next book? How do you decide what you're going to read next? This is a big problem that a lot of us have is like you get to the end of the book and you have this huge just empty space of time. You're like, I don't know what to read. I just can't pick up another book because I'm just stuck in limbo.
It is a very important topic, especially for a Booktube podcast where we have to decide on our next book all the time. We just finished Name of the Wind, a very, very exciting book from the Kingkiller Chronicle. And you finish a book and you're like, it's like all the characters just died. You know, like I had this massive plot, I had all this excitement, I was really into it, all this was great, and then it's over. You're like, okay, where do I go? And that is the question we're answering today on the podcast.
Yes. And it has been easy for us because we just have a whole schedule of books that we just go through.
Pretty much the entire year.
Just like planned
if you have
out.
a recommendation, we'll schedule you for 2025.
That's right. What book should we read next? I don't know. We only have Sanderson to read because we're trying to read everything before the Name of Wind, or not the Name of Wind, Wind and Truth.
We'll get there.
We'll get
books. All of them down.
But it should be good. So I want to start with a question for you, Jaden.
Okay, I'm ready.
You are soon to go on a vacation.
I am.
And you like to read while you vacation.
When there are no kids, yes.
How did you decide on the book that you're going to read?
Oh.
And what book are you going to read?
So this is actually a unique situation, and I'm glad you asked the question. I'll kind of answer this specific vacation and then my general...
Yes, of course. I want to hear it.
We have time?
Yeah.
Okay, so this vacation is because I turned 30 this year.
Ooh.
Which means I'm now old.
Okay, pause for a minute. Can you believe, 20s, that makes it sound like we're young. When you hear that someone's in their 20s, you're like, it's a young person.
Exactly, but
like
30, their 30s, they're old.
Yeah, but you're like a real adult when you're 30. How do you feel to be a real adult?
I got to figure out how to be a real adult. That's the big problem.
Got to figure that out.
So first step, figure out how to be a real adult. Second of all, figure out how to not get old and decrepit as quick as possible is very important to me.
Yeah, very important.
I'm worried that I'm just going to fall apart when I get old.
This is literally a paranoia for Jaden. It is. I laugh out loud sometimes. This is his concerns. Like he's literally ripped, and he's like, I'm just gonna grow up. I'm gonna hit 35, and I think I'm gonna be in bed rest. I'm like, Jaden, you're fine. Like just make sure you keep stairs in your house, and you just go up and down them all the time, and you'll be fine.
It is one of those things. I'm laying it all on the line in the podcast. This is real talk. That does concern me significantly. So the book that I've chosen for this vacation, I'm going to be on the beach in Hawaii. I'm going to have a great time. And the book that I'm going to read is called Outlive by Peter Attia.
Ooh, tell me about it.
It's really just a book about how to maintain longevity. It's about longevity in general. Like how do you continue to be, not necessarily, and there's a lot of concepts of people take health a little too far. You think about people like bodybuilders or people that try to drastically change their weight rapidly, not good for your health. So like those people, you don't look at that and be like, oh, the picture of health, it's one of those things where like fitness is longevity, where you can continue to do all of the functions you should as a human for the longest period of time possible. So like, I have grandparents, right, that are in their 80s, and you're like, you see grandparents who are in their 60s who can't do regular things. They can't walk upstairs. They can't do all these different things. And then there are some that are in their 90s who run marathons.
Yep.
The gamut of different types of people as they age is huge. Anyway, long story short, the reason I picked that book is because that's something like, okay, turning 30, it's been kind of a fear of mine for a while. Yes, it might not be reasonable, but I think more knowledge and more research and more just understanding of the concepts might ease my fears a little bit. And I think learning is one of the main reasons why I like to read. I feel like the more knowledge that I can gain, the better of a person that I can be, whether that's like knowledge of people in psychology or in fantasy books or knowledge of topics or biographies, like always super fun. So learning, understanding, and I think it's just the perfect opportunity to read a book about longevity. So I was like, this is the perfect combination. So that's why I chose this book for this vacation. But in general, when I choose a book for a certain period of time, I want it to be a book that I can really just dive into. So usually it's one that's been on my to-read list for a while. So it's something I'm like, okay, I have a good amount of time, and books almost are like meals. Where you're like, there are some books that are like dessert books. You're like, I'm saving this book for a time where I can really dive into it, like really have a good time and enjoy it and like rip into it. Sometimes that's when I have a lot of time business-wise. I'll get into like a business book and I'll annotate it, or it's just I want to read a fun book because I want to get distracted. It's like, yeah, read a short story written by an author you love. And those are dessert books. So
Yeah.
I think that is usually how I would pick one.
That is awesome. That is really awesome.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good way to start for sure.
Well, it's awesome because it's cool because you're taking the opportunity to read a book that is not a fiction book. You're reading a nonfiction book, and so it's cool to mix it up. Like, I'm sure
agree. Yeah,
you find value in mixing those up too.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, what are the ways that like how do you find books to read? So
how do I find a book to read? Well, step 1, ask Marty what he's reading. That's probably the easiest way.
Honestly, that is a legit answer. Is ask me. No, I'm just kidding.
If you need to know, if you need a book to read, tweet at Next Chapter and Marty will help you.
I will help you. We may even do an episode about it.
That's something we've been thinking about for a while.
Yeah.
And it's a fun idea where you present to us, hey, this is what I like to read. It's what I read in the past. I would like a recommendation. And then Marty and I individually go to Barnes & Noble and find you some books to read. And we take like your profile, do all this stuff. And we go and we pick books that you should read and we send them to you.
Yeah. So if you want a shot at it, give us a tweet.
Let us know if you like the idea, if we should do it, if we should take over Barnes & Noble's one day and just go down there and pick books for subscribers. I think that'd be super fun.
It'd be super fun.
Let us know.
Let us know. Let us know about you so we can pick a good book and find something that you like. Let us know what you've read in the past, what you're interested in, and things like that. And maybe we'll recommend you a book that is fiction and nonfiction. So
It'll be a good time.
It'll be a good time. So, yeah. But other things that I do is definitely I go to people. Is what you're saying.
Number one.
Friends, family, things like that. And honestly, that is the best way. It's funny because I look at a lot of the books that I read and we rag on Goodreads ratings like every single time we come to an episode.
As well deserved.
It's going to happen again today. But 4 and 5-star ratings, not good enough, especially because you can't do halves. But with the whole rating system, I sometimes look at my books that I've rated in Goodreads and I'm like, all my books are 4 and 5 stars. Like, I don't read, like, am I not very diverse? And, like, kind of books that I'm like, no, I actually just read books that, like, other people have loved. And so I'm not interested in reading books that I know I won't like.
You also, I feel like, only rate books once you finish them. Do you ever rate a book that you didn't finish?
Yes, I have.
Really?
Yeah. But that's the thing though, is like, I don't read very many books that I can't finish.
That you don't expect to finish?
Yeah, because like, I already know that I'm going to like the book before I start it. That's a big deal to me.
That's fair.
It turns me off to reading when I start reading books that I'm not interested in, so.
And that's the worst, because it could pull you out of the whole habit. Not just pull you out of a book, but you're like, you just don't read as much because you're in a book that you don't really like. And I think not enough people DNF books. As a hot take.
Ooh, you should have more. So your take is that there should be more people out there that should not be finishing books.
I think there is a general consensus that like you get into a book, you tell people you're reading a book, people see you reading it, you like got it on your nightstand, and people can't like let that go even if they don't really like the book.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot. And just like you said, instead of just getting rid of the book and being like, I'll read something else, they're like, I'm just not really into reading. I'm like, that's the worst, you know? You don't want to lose an entire habit of reading because you're just not into a specific book. Think about a library and how many tens of thousands of books exist in there. And you're like, yeah, I don't really like reading because you didn't like a specific book. And it could be the best book in the world, 5.0 on Goodreads or a 10.0 on the Next Chapter official rating system. All of that, you still don't have to like it. Yep. You could hate the book. You could just let it go. Don't finish it. Return it to the library. Sell it. Give it to a friend. Whatever. Send it to us. Or and just don't give up on reading just to not DNF a book. That's one thing that is, yes, 100% I feel that way.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if you think about it, a lot of people even do that with TV shows. Like they will stop watching a TV show if they don't like it halfway through. Why can't you do that with a book?
That's a lot more common, actually.
Yeah, it's a good point. A lot more common. And so if people just took it a lot more just like the entertainment that they watch on television as a book style, maybe there would be more readers in the world.
So maybe it has to do with how much effort it takes to get into a book. And this is one of the questions that I had for you.
Ooh.
Is how long after you choose that you want to read a book before you start it?
Ooh, Okay, well it depends. So
That's the best kind of question.
Well, yeah. But here's a short answer. I have 67 books listed on Goodreads.
You're kidding. One of your Goodreads
of my
right now.
want to read. And I write these books down from like recommendations that people give me. So this is not only, I don't really go around and say like, hey, I need to read a book. Tell me what I should read. This comes up in like general conversations with people like, hey, I like to read books. Like, do you like to read books? And like they like tell me all these things like, yeah, I read this book, I read that. And I get these awesome recommendations of like different books that people have read. That's actually how I found out about the 3-body problem in the first place.
So there's no qualms. You just throw it on the reading list. Anytime you get a recommendation, boom, it's on the reading list.
Almost all the time. I throw it on the reading list so that I can have a list of just tons of stuff so that I can know what to read. But kind of with how your question is going is I have to decide what book I'm going to read next before I finish the book that I'm currently reading. Because I have found when I do not do that, I get stuck and I do not read another book for like weeks at a time. Well, I just sit there and like, well, should I read this one or should I read that and everything? And I usually try to jump to a book that I'm like most excited about next. So
that's a good way to do it. And it's very similar to like, don't get caught up by a book you don't really want to read.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, go to a book that you're excited about. Now, like, be excited about reading. The value in reading is so huge. We've learned that from the podcast. It's like, put every advantage in your favor to continue reading and to really be involved in a book. I just think that's great. It's great advice for the general public.
That's great advice. That's what you come here for, is great advice.
Exactly right.
It's great. Did you find my Goodreads?
I did find your Goodreads.
Yeah, I actually think I have it marked as private, so I don't know if anyone can find it.
I think we're friends.
Yeah, no, I know.
I have 2 friends on Goodreads.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I have it marked as private is like this book, like I started Goodreads back in the day when I was like...
I joined in May of 2017.
You did?
That's what it says. Marty Vaughn.
Oh, I did?
Yep.
Oh, it can't be 2017.
Hey, I don't make the rules.
That is wrong. I know it's wrong. I have posts on there from 2008. Like I've been on Goodreads since 2008. But...
Again, Goodreads, clearly just not up to par.
Yeah.
That's all we know.
You know what? I think I made a new Goodreads because I did not like my old one. And just added those old ones.
Yet another black mark on the Goodreads.
Yeah, still
reputation.
All my books were just like I just had a lot of elementary school grade books,
young adult books. Like just fun books to read.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah. Anyways, I'm building my Goodreads. I'm getting there. But lots of want to reads on there. I love that. That's my place to go to.
Marty has 81 ratings on his Goodreads. I don't know if I've read 81 books. So that's already impressive. I'm impressed.
That is one of the reasons why I like having a Goodreads type place, is so I can have a place to come back to.
Does it recommend books to you based on what you read? You've read a lot of books and you've rated a lot of books. There's got to be some recommendation algorithm that's saying you would also like this book.
It might. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it. If
it is, then it's not very good.
I don't use Goodreads for anything but to keep a list of everything that I've read and everything that I want to read and things like that. And that's why I'm saying there is just like that's why I keep a list, is so I can see how many books have I read. Like it kind of makes me feel good about like, wow, I've read a lot. But 81 though is like nothing compared to like how many booktubers out there and everything they've read. Like some people read 80 books in a year.
I only have 15 books.
You only read 15 books in your whole life?
On my to read list. I keep my list in Apple Reminders.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you find your to reads?
And the interesting thing is, it's all recommendations. All of it. 100%.
Yeah.
Whether it, like, not always people that I know. There are some people like I'll follow on social media, whether that's Twitter or YouTube, like Booktube, where they're like, oh, we love this book and it's a book I've never heard of. I'm like, oh, throw it on the list.
Yep.
You kind of develop a trust with the people you follow on social media. And you're like, they liked books that I like. They have similar ideas to me. And they say, we love this book. I'm like, that's an easy recommendation.
Do you have some examples from booktubers of books that they've recommended?
Ooh, not
off the top of your head?
Not that's on my list right now. But I know one of them was $1 Million Weekend.
Okay.
It's one that's on my list.
Very cool.
That is, again, a lot of these are book reviewers, but they're not fantasy. Are they still booktubers? I don't know. But anyway, some things like that. I'm like, oh, the Pathless Path is another one that I want to read. That's actually on my list, and that's from a YouTuber. Yeah, it's just cool stuff like that where you're like, okay, that seems like a book that I would read because this person recommended it and I trust them. So
Yep.
that's the best way to read a book, I feel like.
Yeah, getting recommendations, because then you'll find a book that is good and you'll like it.
The likelihood of you finishing it is so much higher.
Totally. So I wrote down some Booktubers recommendations that I had liked.
Oh.
And I wanted to read them. Tudor Ramble had a book recommendation. We actually chatted with Tudor Ramble just the other day. They gave us a few suggestions for our channel. They're
Thanks,
good
guys.
Thanks, guys. Big fan. Go check out their channel if you haven't found them. You probably have before us because they're way the freak bigger than us.
Like,
they're killing it.
What book did they recommend to you?
But they recommended the book Red Rising.
Oh, you told me about that book.
Yeah.
I heard it from you before I heard it from them, actually.
I know. Well, it's because some people at work were saying, like, this book is incredible. Like, you guys have to read it. Like, everyone that I tell to read it
Austin
just loves
loves
it.
Red Rising.
Austin?
Yeah. On Tudor Ramble.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, I didn't know
fan.
if it was like another Austin that you.
Oh, no.
I'm like,
sorry.
Austin in our friend circle?
Different Austin.
Yeah. But very cool. Yeah, no, he was saying he loves it and he was just like raving on it and stuff. So, got to check it out. It's probably going to be on our to read list. Another one, Daniel Green talks about the Bob verse.
I haven't even heard that
We
one.
Are Legion, We Are Bob is one of the books, which is hilarious. The only thing I know about the story, it was actually recommended by a friend of mine first. Then I heard Daniel Green start raving about this book. It's a sci-fi book.
Okay.
About, the commenters are going to roast me because I've never read this book and I don't actually know what it's about. But I think the idea is that all of humanity has put all of their like voices, their personalities into like one like AI type thing to go explore the universe, and they call like that AI like Bob. And so like the whole idea like we are Legion, we are Bob is because like we are like everyone.
Literally sounds like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a funny book, but also super good at the same time. Like very, very interesting, very like.
So
good.
that's on your list?
Yeah, it's a book we are going to read. I'm very excited about it.
I'm sure we
might
will.
not get there until after Wind and Truth, but I'm excited about it. And the last one, this is just like a whole range of books here. Bookborn, I was listening to some of the books that she's liked recently, and she actually recommended a book, Stranger Things. It says, yep, Worlds Turned Upside Down, the official behind-the-scenes companion. And I'm like, a companion book? I'm like, that's interesting. I don't think like I've ever like thought of that as a novel that I'd want to read or something like that.
Ever.
Yeah. But she said, surprisingly, this book was super good on all about like
and
Stranger
you
Things.
love
Stuff like
Stranger
that.
Things.
I think it's great. And so I'm like, I gotta check it out. I looked at the Goodreads rating, 4.46. Incredible.
It's pretty good.
That is really good, dude. So anything on Goodreads above a 4 is usually something I'll read. It's kind of interesting. Anything below a 4 is usually a book I don't like.
That is interesting. Do you think that's just going to continue that pattern, or just?
I mean, there's enough reviews in Goodreads now, and it's been around enough that like I usually check the ratings before I read a book. That is another way that I check and decide on the next book is I check the Goodreads ratings. It's got to be above a 4.
Interesting.
Even though I hate
I
Goodreads
know.
ratings, it does have one good quality, is that if it's a 4 or above, I usually is a book that I will dive into and try.
Very interesting. Okay, so we talked about like your next book, and my question, kind of a follow-up to that, is do you have to finish a book before you start your next book? And I think this is controversial for some people because people feel very differently. I think you and I might feel very differently about this. But do you have to finish a book before you start a new one?
For me,
This is not a DNF. This is not a DNF.
Yeah,
this is you're continuing to read a book, but you also start another one.
For me, it depends on the book. So if it's another fiction book, then I have to finish the book before I start the next one. If it's a nonfiction book, I'm okay with starting it before I finish my last book. And sometimes I'll mix them in between. The other exception to the rule for me is having reading a book on paper versus Audible. I will do that at the same time.
I was going to say, that is like the craziest thing. And I was hoping you were going to say that. So you've mentioned that before, and I'm like, what?
Will you not start any books at the same time?
The nuance for me is I won't say that I won't do it, but if I start another book while I'm in the middle of a different book, the likelihood that I'll DNF that first book is incredibly high.
Oh, interesting.
It's just I'll get swept into the other book, and I'll rarely go back to finish my first book. So I try not to, as a general rule, because I know of myself that if I start another book, the likelihood of me going back to the first one is very low.
Interesting. See, my whole thing is, especially like more with the Audible versus hard copy, is that the Audible books, I can't, like, there are sometimes when you're sitting at home and you just want to read a book. But I'm not going to like stick my headphones in and stare at a wall for 2 hours like while I listen to this book. Like, I've got to find the hard copy. And sometimes I'll get the hard copy of the book that I'm listening to. But other times I'm like, you know what? That'll be the book I'll just commute to and listen to while I'm doing chores and things like that. And then there'll be the book that I relax at home and just like I'm thumbing through like while I'm sitting there when I can. I got 2 kids who
I'm like surprised you find time to thumb through a book.
It's not very often, and it's like I'm like, oh, this seems like a good time. Then all of a sudden the kids like lose all attention on anything they're doing. What you doing, Dad? And I'm like I'm trying to read a book. It's just sweet, but it's just they know when you're trying to do something on your own, and they will not let you do it.
That is the truth. They are very good at that.
Yep.
That's interesting. I think it's funny that we are very different in the having multiple books at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to try that, right? Because you're doing the whole Hawaii thing.
I do need to. And I think the podcast will really help with that. But
yeah.
My natural tendency, without these wonderful subscribers that we are helping and we are supporting, I don't think it'd be very easy for me to go back to a book. So that's why I try to avoid it.
Yep. I'll say the last way that I have to choose the next book is a very obvious way, but It is by one, either finding another book by an author that you already like, by continuing a series. So, for example, that you've already started. So I guess I'll start with the author that you already like. I really liked this book. Walter Isaacson wrote Steve Jobs, and so I decided to get the Elon Musk book, and so that is one of the books that I want to be reading next, and because I really enjoyed the Steve Jobs book.
Have you read Elon Musk's first biography?
Yes, I did.
It's pretty good.
It was pretty good. It was fine.
Does that make you want to read his next biography even more, or less?
Like this one?
Yeah.
Oh, this even more, because I didn't like the author as much. Like I really, really liked Walter Isaacson for
the Steve Jobs book.
And I feel like he was the standard. Like, now that I've read this, it's funny because I tried to read this book. It was Amazon and about Jeff Bezos. I could not finish the book. That was one of my DNF books, and it was awful for me. I felt like he was even quoting things from the Walter Isaacson book, trying to make him seem like some of the same words that he used to describe Steve Jobs. I'm like, you're just trying to be this, and it's just not working.
Ouch.
And
that is a scathing review.
It was really bad, dude. I couldn't finish it. So, anyways, and I just don't really like Jeff Bezos, anyways. But
see the rest of our videos for some interesting conversations about Amazon.
I know, just not really a big fan. But anyways, interested in that. Other things, continuing a series would be like Three Body Problem, reading the next in the series, which would be great. Or also just getting recommendations from people who recommend series. Getting recommendations on a series of books is a big deal. So
it's intense because that's a lot of books to commit to.
Yes,
absolutely.
So
you mentioned a lot of ways to find a new book, but
yes.
I'm curious, how often do you reach for a new book versus rereading an old book?
Ooh, I will almost never reread a book, and it is that is pretty huge for me.
That is huge.
Yeah, I will almost never reread a book, but I will almost never rewatch a movie either. I'm the same way with both. I do not like rewatching movies.
You don't rewatch movies?
I only rewatch movies when I'm showing someone a movie for the first time, and I love that experience. But watching it by myself, rewatching it, is just like you just can't really enjoy it as much.
I knew that. One of my wife and I's favorite things to do is to rewatch like movie series. Like kind of like a marathon, but we just watch them as we find time. Yeah. And like we pause it halfway through and stuff.
Like the Marvel movies and such?
Life with kids is that way. But yeah, we'll just be like, okay, right now we're going to watch all of the Bourne movies. So like for the next 3 weeks, like that's what we'll watch when we have time to watch a movie. Yeah. And, like it's so much fun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, dude. We've watched it a bunch of times. Like we're probably going to go back and watch Psych again because it's the greatest series ever.
Well, it makes it sound exciting. So maybe I will try that. I don't know. I do a lot of rewatching when I'm showing my wife like movies or shows she's never seen. I've reread books doing the same thing, like re-listening to the Audible with her.
For
at the
me,
same time.
which you've done that for me a couple of times.
I've done that with you.
Reread Sanderson books that I'm reading for the first time.
Yes, and I love doing that because then you can be with them in the moment, like fresh and hearing
cool.
it. That's what we're doing with y'all. We love it.
We have a reread series for the Brandon Sanderson,
Yeah.
the bigger ones, the Stormlight Archive. So if you're just reading it for the first time, watch those videos as you go through the book, and it's the same thing. It's like reading along with us.
Yeah, it's so fun. I just want to be there to react with you. That's why we did this channel, so
Absolutely
we can react
right.
with you.
But
So-
it's interesting that you don't really reread books
I don't
for yourself.
It's the same, like I said, books and movies, and I just don't really reread unless it's for someone else. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's cool to know that. I feel like that's a difference because I do like to reread books.
Yeah.
There's some books that I'm just like, it's a killer book.
Yep. Honestly, though, I shouldn't say that's a hard fast rule, though. Sanderson is the first time I've started reading books where I'm like, you know what? I would reread all those books on my own because they're just so well written.
Yeah, and
so good.
you
Such
learn a
fun
lot,
story,
and like you
so.
can catch a lot more as you go back through it. So very interesting.
Yep. Cool. I think that's all my questions. Do you have any more?
That's all that I had for this episode. But the good news is this is a podcast that continues into the future and beyond, which means if you want to see more of our discussions or you have a question for us that you want us to answer on an episode just like this, or if you're interested just in our thoughts or a recommendation for a book for you, whatever that is, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, find us on Spotify for the podcast, and we will catch you in the next video.